What is mindset? Our mindset is based on what we believe, and anything we believe in, we put into motion. I have spent my life putting the mindset of perseverance into motion, and now I am here today to share my journey along with others whose mindsets have changed the course of their lives. Hi, I'm Mindset Coach Lorraine Lindsey, and I believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. So are you ready? What's up, y'all? This is Coach Lorraine Lindsey, and you're watching another episode of The Mindsetters, where we believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. We are wrapping up our two-part series on limiting beliefs. But before I introduce our guest for today, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button. Give us the thumbs up. Send us your comments. We love to hear from you. If you have topic ideas, we also love to hear from you about that too. But then again, I don't know what I'm saying, but that's okay. So anyways, without further ado, sorry. I'm your host, Coach Lorraine Lindsey. I am a certified peak performance coach with the famous Tony Robbins organization. I'm also a life coach and mindset coach. And today I have the fabulous lipstick ladies. They are my two favorite girls to be on the show, two of my closest friends, and they're here to conclude on the limiting belief systems, which I thought was really good from last week. So let me first introduce the guests. We have Miss Charlene Ruiz. Miss Charlene Ruiz is a coach, a fitness coach, a mentor. She has her own company called Your Time to Be Fit Coaching. She is also a mortgage lender here in the Las Vegas Valley for the last 20 years. She is the current president for NAREP, which is the National Association of Real Estate of Hispanic Professionals. And she's a very busy woman, so it's always very, very nice that she make some time to be on the show. So thank you again, Charlene, for being here, my little lipstick lady. And then the second guest is one of my besties, Miss Carmen Smith. Carmen Smith is a local Las Vegas realtor. She works for a Signature Real Estate Group. So if you're looking to buy a home or sell your home, get in contact with Carmen. But she's not limited to that. She's actually in the midst of creating her own skincare line. And she has a nonprofit organization that is helping young youth that are caught up in the system and need support. So Carmen, one of these days, will come on and talk more in depth about her endeavors and things. She doesn't like when I put her on the spot, but I'm putting her on the spot because I got these fabulous ladies with me. Okay, so we're here to do part 2 of limiting belief systems. And it's interesting because I've been thinking quite a bit about this, these limiting beliefs, especially when it comes to myself, actually, after doing last week's show and really like pondering, like, what is it? What are the limiting beliefs that I have? And realizing that there are quite a few, and it's always unique how it kind of shows up in my life. And sometimes, or most of the time, it's so subconscious that I'm not even aware of the patterns and the emotions that are centered around these belief systems. So I kind of want to, be a little candid today and share some of those things. And then kind of break it down for the people who are out there listening to, so they can hopefully relate and say, you know what, that's me. That's what I struggle with. And I thought to break it down into 3 categories. But we talked last week about limiting beliefs. And again, I'll read this just real quickly for those that didn't watch it last week. And this is from Tony Robbins. Limiting beliefs are the stories we tell ourselves about who we are that hold us back from becoming who we are meant to be. These beliefs limit us from reaching our full potential. They are often subconscious. We don't even know that we have them until someone points them out to us, which is very true. And I do want to talk about that as well. The human brain is wired to conserve energy. We seek certainty in our routines, relationships, and jobs. We're often averse to risk and don't want to get out of our comfort zones. And we only invest energy taking action when we believe it will produce results. When we don't believe we get results, when we don't believe we can get results, when we don't have a deep belief in ourselves, we give up before we even start. We don't put in our full effort. We sabotage our own success. That's the very definition of limiting beliefs. So today I kind of want to pick that apart a little bit because we briefly went over it. And so the question here today is this, right? What really separates those that do in life and those that don't? Because I think at the core of all of us, we all essentially have aspirations, goals, things that we want out of life. it doesn't necessarily mean like big, huge, grandiose careers or optimal, look. Some people just simply want love and a relationship and companionship. Some people just want a community of people who relate to them. Sometimes our wants and desires are very simple, yet we don't have them, or seemingly simple. And so today I really want to talk about, well, what separates when we look at people who seem to have it all. Why is it that they do and we don't? And is it, in fact, that they actually do? Or is that just an illusion, right? So I broke this down into 3 categories. I know that I'm being long-winded in this intro, but I kind of want to kind of get it in so everyone knows what we're going to be getting into. And when I first started doing workshops, one of the things that I used to categorize things was like work, self, and relationships and love. So, and the thing is, when we look at our lives and when I would talk to people, I would say, okay, if I were to give you these 3 words, list them in order of priority as it stands today in your life. So for me, as an example, especially when my son was young and I was a single mom and I need to make ends meet, work was number 1. That was the priority of my life at that time, and everything came after. The second was self, because the job that I was doing at the time, I was an EMT, required me to be physically fit. It required me to have strength and stamina. So I really had to take care of myself physically. And what I found often at that time in my life was that because my work was important and taking care of myself was important in order to take care of my son, my love life really suffered. I really felt that it was the part of my life that I gave least attention to. So I felt that was where most of my problems were. So I kind of want to, well, before we go into it, what do you ladies have to just jump in and say right out the gate about this limiting belief thing?
I like it put into perspective of how we allow our insecurities to play such a major part in our belief system, and different stages of your life. Like you were saying, when your kids were younger, I think I'm experiencing that now. Like, I had to work, I had to make sure my kids eat, I had to provide for them. Now it's a little easier, and it's like I'm more lax. Like I don't have that hustle like I used to have, And I think I don't know if it's because you get out of it, and I've shifted going to different careers, and so I think where we're at in time, like when your back's against the wall, because you got to feed those kids, you got to make sure they go to school, you got to make sure they have what they want. You have no choice but to get up and go to work,
right?
Whatever that takes. And then when it's like, oh, I don't have these responsibilities anymore, it's just me I got to worry about. I'm good eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Who cares if my refrigerator's not full? It changes the dynamic a little bit.
Absolutely.
And you have to find that what's going to inspire you now.
Yeah, I struggle with that big time with my son living an adult life, and he's okay, he's doing well, praise God to that. But I finding that compelling why again and saying, what could I do in my life? And again, and connecting it to those limiting beliefs, like why am I telling myself what am I telling myself actually that I'm not as driven as I used to be? Because I had so much drive before, and now it's like, what's this whole thing called life? Like, what is it like? Really, almost.
What does it really mean? What is important?
And I don't even know if it's like an age thing either. It's like, at this age, it's like, do I want to start over? Do I want to try a new career? Is what I thought I was passionate about. Am I really passionate about that? And then being torn between making money and being successful when knowing what I know how to do, and then saying, but I don't want to do that. I want to follow this, but I don't know where to start. And is it that I don't know where to start? Is it because I'm afraid, blah, 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 on and on and on.
What it takes. I mean,
so
these
again,
young people have all this energy, and it's like,
and it ties into those limiting beliefs.
Yeah. For me personally, I think I'm always, every level, there's another level of life. So I've learned to trust myself and my aspirations, and whatever I go after, I got to be careful what I ask for, because it can actually happen. But I also, right now in my life, my motivation is my ability to support myself and my family if health was an issue, knowing that there's resources outside of here, this country, that can help certain things. This is just me, I'm taking it somewhere else with that, but that's motivating me to be my best, and also to help other people learn things that I find to be true and of value. So that carrot stick is where I find my motivation, whatever that might be. And in that journey, I'm learning more about myself. And in that journey comes my fears dissolving because I'm going after something that's going to solve a problem with inside that's inside of me. And through that, I'm just becoming a better person. However, that does change. To your point, my daughter's an adult now, been married a really long time, and there's, it's an ebb and flow of life, but what motivates me to keep going and keep wanting to climb, yes, financial security is always a must, but there's ways to fill those buckets differently. I can do anything, but should I do everything? Probably not. I got to focus on what matters to me. And right now in my life today, health is a big deal because there's a lot of stuff going around right now. And I know that there's opportunities that are extremely expensive that in order to be there, we have to be at a certain level of financial stability. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with that.
I think another thing, like when you'll have like real estate, for example. I love real estate, but I'm seeing that I want to do it a different way. I don't necessarily want to be an agent because I'm the agent that loves to help the person that's the underdog. Like they don't have enough money, but I want to help. I get
That's
high
beautiful.
off. Yeah, but I ain't gonna make no money doing that. You know what I mean? I mean, not to, I can, I'm gonna work a lot harder. It's just not, I need to create another solution for another problem. And then, seeing other people, like when we went to the conference and it's like, have these big, great teams. I'm like, I don't even want to work that hard and have managed people. And like, it's just too much. I don't want to do that. I like helping people. I like going to the courthouse and sitting and being support for somebody. So how do I monetize off of that?
Right.
Exactly.
And that's the key. And so let's go into that. So the first bullet point on limiting belief systems is actually work. It says, and it's a great way to segue into it. And when I say work, I mean, it could also equate to purpose. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I've done the job on provision. I went after the career and sought the career that was going to be provisional for me and for my son. It was going to make the money. And it was one of those things where it wasn't necessarily the career path that I thought that I would go down, but it was lucrative enough that I was able, because my compelling why was strong, to really just kill it, so to speak. But my belief system at the time was, I don't have a choice but to make this work. I was put into a position that I didn't believe that I was qualified for. But my compelling why inside my mind was bigger than my inability, my belief in my inability. So when I got the position, and I remember I went from
That's key what you just said right there.
I went from being an executive assistant, I was an EMT paramedic student, going to nursing school, and I was given this big executive position to handle these big accounts in a casino, dealing with people and levels of wealth that I had never been around. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I am not qualified for this job. There's no way that I can do this job. But the compelling why was, I must do this job because my son and his livelihood depends on it. And if I can do this job for him, it'll change the course of his life and that he can have a different outcome.
Amen.
And so that's what I mean by the belief system. So even though I believed I wasn't qualified, the compelling why trumped what I believed my ability to do. So I guess for me, it's like, how do we as people out there find something so compelling that even if we don't necessarily believe our ability to be loved, to have this job, to do this thing, how do we create that desire that's so strong that it trumps all the other limiting belief systems?
I didn't get to watch the whole podcast last week, but you said something about, if you have a thought about something and you get excited about it, like that's it. That's what you have to tap into. And I'm really like this journey I'm on right now. I'm learning that, like when because I get so passionate about certain things, and then some things I'm like,
it pulls you.
And I'm like, stop going to the things that are not driving me, because I don't get anywhere with it. If I know I don't want to put the work into it, I'm not going to be good at it.
Right.
Who cares if I'm not going to be a millionaire, whatever the case may be. If God put it in me, I can be it.
Right.
Whatever that is that fuels my fire. And if it looks like I make my skincare products at home and, I go to the courthouse and help kids, I could live with that. I could live with that.
Yeah, you found a passion inside of you. And I think what you said is clear, the driving force, whatever that may be. We have these little seeds inside of us that grow. And as we grow, we get to decide which route we want to take, and hopefully we made smart decisions that we can. Because some people are forced to stay where they're at. They don't have the option to do other things. And that's when they have to really find something inside of them to tap into to get through where they're at until they get to that place that they want to be. But that's actually really beautiful, Carmen. That's a good place to be right now.
I think a lot of us look for validation from the people around us too.
Right.
Like how, well, am I going to fail? Or if I tried to do something and it didn't turn out the way I said it was going to turn out because now I decided that's not what I want to do, how are other people going to look at me? How are my friends going to look at me? How are my family going to look at me? And I don't want to see myself as a failure. But it's really not being a failure.
You know what's also really interesting is that, and I've said this before, like, you know, like in myself personally, I've been very successful being mediocre. And what I mean by that is that I will go to the end of the cliff to prove something to somebody else more so than I'll do for myself, right? And I consider myself an incredibly integral person. So if someone task me with something that they need from me, I'm more willing to do it for them than I am for myself. And the thing is, like, as the example I gave with the job that I was given, somebody believed in me and gave me the position, you know, and there was a unique set of circumstances that led me down that pathway. It wasn't a job that I sought, but someone saw something in me. But on top of me wanting to make sure I succeeded for my son, I didn't want to disappoint that person. So I have this thing inside of me that is compelling. I know I feel like what my why is, and it's tied into me doing the podcast and coaching, but it's never been something that I've 100% all out focused on. And I'll tell myself, well, I don't know where to start, or this is overwhelming, or there's too many different things that I need to do, and I don't have a website, or I don't have this, and the list goes on in my head, and it all that stuff stifles me. But if it were a position that was given for somebody else to work for someone else, I would literally figure it out. And so again, it's like, why when we talk about the failure and worrying about failing and things like that, but we don't put in that same level of for ourselves. And I'm always wondering, why is that?
I have an answer. We're responsible individuals. We don't have option B. Our life is our decision. So whatever choice we make, we have to calculate it so that we can support the life that we have. And if it's going to take a longer route to get to where we are now, sometimes there's that hesitation. So sometimes that's why, because we know if this fails, it's on me. There's nobody that's going to save me behind. So I got to make this work. What's the probability of me doing that right now? How important is it right now? Am I willing to sacrifice this life to possibly get to that life? But if I don't succeed there, then my life could look like this.
Yeah, but that's a lot of overthinking.
It is.
Right?
Which is what blocks people from pursuing.
And again, it goes back to what separates the ones that do and the ones that don't. Every single successful person in the line of work that I do, I've met, when I say billionaires, like high-level billionaires and multimillionaires, and just really intriguing and fascinating people. I've been privy to meet these people and break bread with them. And I always ask them the same question. You know, how did you get, especially the ones who are rags to riches, like literal rags to riches. And everyone has always told me the same thing. They all said that I made the risk where there was no other choice. That if this did not work,
that's
it was over. And it was so, and they just literally, like the expression, they burned the boats. Everyone that had a passion, that they truly said, this will work, this is going to work, they burned the boats.
And they were willing to lose. They were willing to lose whatever it was before. So that's, I think that the answer is in that. If they're willing to take a risk, all in, no holds barred, nothing. If I fail this and I start at ground zero, how many people are really willing to start at ground zero? And what does that look like for them?
And you know what's interesting too, not to interrupt you, is that it was never the money. None of the guys or the people that I've spoke to that are incredibly successful, they weren't chasing money. They just had this thing that they believed in so much, and they just wanted to see that it could work. The money came as a result of it, but that wasn't the intention. That wasn't what was driving them.
And I would assume, and I could be wrong, that there was a calculated decision in that too. It wasn't just, let me take that risk blindly. It was like, okay, this is what I want and I'm going to go after it. Let me just make sure that I can and I'm going to do it.
No, they weren't.
I
maybe
don't
not
know
make
if everything
sure.
has to be so
No,
calculated.
at least they need a place to live, food to eat,
Yeah.
water to drink, stuff like that.
I've literally heard them risk it all.
Well, that's
I mean,
that's
you've got
impressive,
stories like
yeah.
Tyler Perry sleeping
Mhm.
in their car.
Yes, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm,
So
mhm.
for some people, it's not like, some of us need that certainty and that comfort, right? We need to feel like, and I do believe it's a little bit of it's a responsible limiting
Mhm.
belief, but nonetheless it is, because
Mhm.
we talk ourselves out of
Mhm.
things because we're worried of what we might lose,
Exactly,
and
yeah.
not really focus on, I could focus on what I may lose, or I could focus on the reward. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, at the end of the day, what are things?
Mhm.
I'm blessed. We're blessed. We live in the United States of America, right? It's one of the wealthiest countries in the world. So we're very blessed. I could go down to the assessor's office or county office and apply for business.
Mhm.
I could start a business
Yeah.
in my backyard,
Yep.
you know, and we're blessed in that way.
Mhm.
So it's like, okay, if I lose everything, what am I going to lose?
That's
Stuff?
the decision, exactly.
Right.
So that's really what it is.
And am I really never going to be able to eat? Not really,
Mhm.
because if the hunger and to eat is a compelling
Why?
why in my life to have food, I will find food. So we tell ourselves these things
Mhm.
when they're just excuses, and I'm not saying they're not valid excuses, especially if you have a family and you have children, and you're like, well, I'm going to sacrifice this, and this might cost our family. But I feel like if it's purposeful enough, that it becomes something so strong, and it's something that you must do.
You believe in it. Mm-hmm.
If it's a must, it'll get done.
Mm-hmm.
It'll get done. All right. So I want to go to the self and the limiting beliefs in self. And I thought about this a lot as well. I really kind of like thought about some things in my own personal life where there was these limiting beliefs when it came to myself. Insecurities, beating myself up, self-sabotage, things that I would do because I just didn't have a strong sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of my toxic relationships were because I did not have a strong sense of self. And so they were void fillers for my life. They were people who treated me in ways that were very familiar to me, although it was unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget one of the biggest gut checks I got was from my youngest sister. I was in my really toxic relationship with my ex-husband. And he was cruel. He was mean. He was very mean. And I remember always having this strong-willed personality, this independent woman, this, you know, no one could get to me. And then he got to me, and I'll never forget my little sister who looked up to me, said, I never thought you'd be that girl. And I remember that feeling in my gut because I never thought I'd be her either. But I really, to get out of that relationship 100%, as I really had to check into myself and say, who was she?
Mm-hmm.
And why did she make a choice to teach this person to treat me this way? Because I accepted it. I tolerated it. I made it okay. And I could make a million excuses. Well, he apologized. He promised me this time it was going to be different. He begged. He's remorseful.
It's that belief, yeah.
And maybe I deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should have been better this, or I should have did better this. And not really realizing that there's some pathology associated with my belief system. There was me not feeling pretty enough, good enough, and really saying, wow, when it comes to limiting beliefs, that's showing up in my personal life because I'm attracting who I think is settling for me as opposed to attracting what I deserve, you know?
Or we choose to settle because it's less I mean, it's a smoother ride in some way, I suppose, or it's a convenient, or it's enough for right now.
The devil you know versus the devil you don't know.
Yeah. Or you hold on to that one piece of the person that's like, this is what he feeds me with,
right?
And then I just can't let that go, but everything else.
And also for people of faith that are religious, they interpret the Bible a certain type of way, and they believe that that's what we're supposed to do because we choose one path, that we have to choose that path forever. And that's a whole nother thing, and that's a sticky one, but it's the belief that we carry will dictate the life that we live. That's just it.
I mean, that's true. It's very true. And it's interesting because like for example, me and my sisters, there's three of us, and that grew up in home with my mom, and we're all very, very different. We all grew up in the same household, but how we saw things happening in that household has dictated how we show up in our lives today. And for some of us, it's still profoundly affecting us, and some of it's profoundly affecting us, but in a subtle way. And then in other ways, it's affecting us that in a positive manner, because not all bad things that happen to your life or happen in your life has to equate to bad things happening. That's a limiting belief system. What would happen to me, and my mom was like this, or my dad was like this, or this person treated me this way, and so you have to bring that forth. No, sometimes you can go through things in life and say, okay, those are the things that I won't accept from my life, and these are the things that I won't have from my life. It's like the saying, and I've said this before, I believe, the twins grow up with an alcoholic father. One twin drinks and is an alcoholic, and the other one doesn't drink at all. And the question is, why? And the answer is the same, because my dad was an alcoholic, right? It's just how we choose to see a story, how we choose to tell the narrative of the story. Like these are and I say this over and over again because it's one of the most powerful things that I learned from my own life, is that to really separate the narrative from what happened.
And what are you accepting? What are you accepting to be true?
Right.
Truly, I mean, that's the circumstances, but that's not the truth. And nature versus nurture, your environment, how you're loved, all of those things factor into. Your point, twins in the same home, but they chose differently. Somehow, some way, something.
But their why is the same, which is interesting, right? It's like my relationship when I said that the root of the tree, right? So the seed that manifested this tree, the seed was the same seed. It was abandonment. But the fruit of the tree showed up differently. Mine was a fear of engulfment. My partner's was a fear of abandonment. And how did that look? With engulfment, it was stay away, don't get close to me. If you get too close, you're going to hurt me. And so it was me pushing people out. With my partner, it was the extreme opposite of, you can't leave me and I'm going to get as close to you as possible. So while I'm trying to run, this person is trying to run to me, and it was causing this explosion because now I'm feeling engulfed and he was feeling abandoned. But at the root of the tree, our stories were very similar. It's just the narrative of what that meant and how we were supposed to protect it was different. And until we were able to really tap into that and really see that we're cut from the same cloth, which is why we connected. But how do we let the healing begin and us be one another's healers, as opposed to fighting to protect a position that no longer serves us? Because we're not the children anymore. We're the adults trying to play it out again. And that realization that was limiting us was what was stifling our growth and causing toxicity in the relationship, Anyways, I rambled on about that.
That's good.
What do you guys think? Okay, so on limiting beliefs, and it kind of ties in together when we saw self, and then the next one would be love. This one, so I got a call from somebody very close to me, and they said, I watched your show. I watched a clip of your show. I was like, oh, what do you think? They're like, well, the clip said, how do you get love? And I said, okay. And they're like, well, it just kind of made me really sad to watch it. And I was a little taken aback. And I said, well, why did it make you feel sad? Well, I'm just so broken. Everybody in my life that I trusted and loved abused me, violated me. I just had a lot of really hurtful things, down to my mother never telling me that never heard my mother say, I love you. Never heard her or never felt her affection. And then having bad relations. So when they're watching this clip on how to get love, they're looking at that like it's an impossibility, because I refuse to let anybody love me because they're just going to cause me pain. And I always give more than I get. And it was really heartbreaking for me, especially the person who shared this with me. And it made me think, God, probably a lot of people feel that way. And I'm saying this thing about love and abundance and the abundance of love, but how do I convey understanding your own abundance if you really coming from a space and listening from a space of just true brokenness and valid brokenness?
And what does love mean? How does she define love? What does that look like?
Well,
Some
she
folks,
defines it as hurt and pain.
right.
Right?
But what would the opposite of that be for her?
Yeah.
You know, how could someone show her unconditional love and she receives it if she can't? So that goes back to again, the self-work and there may very well be love all around now,
Oh,
but
for sure there is.
yeah.
And there always is.
Mhm.
It's just that, you know, what we see in the room. And I know I've talked about this before with like, if, you know, if I tell people to close their eyes and envision a specific color and to look, and then to open and look around the room, they'll see the colors in the room. And then if I tell them to close their eyes and look for a different color and open their eyes, that color is also in the room. The bottom line is both of those colors have always existed. But you're just focused on the color of brokenness as opposed to the color of love, whatever that means to you. And when you really believe, and again, limiting belief system, I am broken, that is a belief. And if you say that enough, you know, Dr. Joe Dispenza, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he talks about this many, many times. He says, when something happens in your life, let's say catastrophic, something tragic, something sad, it changes your mood. That's how it starts. It switches a thought in the brain and it changes your mood. If you repeat the narrative that attaches to the emotion for months at a time, then it creates a temperament. That temperament is maybe depression, maybe not wanting to get out of bed, maybe just feeling like, you know, woe is me or whatever it may be. But if you create that narrative for years, it becomes a personality trait and it is hardwired in your brain. And so, like with this person, the narrative being broken has been being said for 30 plus years. That is a personality trait. That is a belief system. So wherever she goes, whether it's work and people are whispering, they're talking about me. And instead of going out and socializing and meeting people, nobody's going to like me. Oh, this person flirting with me and has an interest in me? No, they're probably looking at everything wrong with me. Even when it comes down to religion for this person, God is mad at me. And they just live in that space. And it's just like,
And they probably attract the same type of people.
well, you only attract what you believe. 100%. And we do it so subconsciously. I there's a pattern with the kind of men that I was attracting in my life. And when I finally took a pause and sat down and really paid attention, I was like, there's a pattern here. So forget about the men being the problem. What the hell do I believe in my life that this is tolerable? Because someone else could tell me a different story and that they're going through something in their relationship. And I'm like, I would never put up with that. But that's because that's not what that's not what I tolerate. That's not where my standard lies. But it's all what I believe. So in order for me to attract somebody, not necessarily just in love, but attract the right occupation and the right purpose for my life, and to attract the right people in my life, to attract health into my life, I first have to believe that those are for me.
And I think the three of us here have been exposed to many people, many walks of life. So we have an understanding, or somewhat of an understanding, of differences in life. So we can interpret things as opposed to someone who hasn't been around anything other than that.
Right.
How do you identify what that is if you don't know differently? And how do you do so now, 35 years later, when that's always been your story, your life, your environment, all of that? So it's a tough place to be, but it's very much possible to break out of that.
So then how?
Well, if they heard us speaking now, I don't think they would understand what we're saying because it's foreign. You
So
know?
how do we break that down?
Exactly. So how do we, I would tell them to go on a retreat or something, go shake yourself off and just be open, be angry if you want to be there, while people let you be angry and still love you through that anger. Be upset with me, cuss me out. I'm still going to love you. Go ahead. I know you're going through something.
Yeah.
Be around people that understand what you're going through and let you be who you are and still love you, you know.
That takes a great deal of trust, though, and for a
Absolutely.
person who feels like nobody loves them, that's, to find people that you say, I'm going to trust you to tell me,
Right.
But they don't trust them.
Exactly, and that's my point. So I think, like, self-reflection is everything, and getting with the counselor, or, if you can't find a group of friends to talk to. I know a huge change and shift in my thought process was a breakup I had during COVID, and just sitting there like so sad about, and then just everything in my life resurfacing and having to feel all the pain and the grief and actually dealing with it and being still and quiet in it. And then like realizing that I put an expectation on somebody to save me, that he didn't ask for that. Why do I need somebody to save me? Because I haven't dealt with my shit.
Right.
And it's just self-reflection. Like, what do I need? And it's a work. You constantly have to work at it. I don't think we ever get it right.
No.
I don't think we ever get it right. But just, and then being okay with not being okay. You know, like, I'm going to mess up. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fall. Learn from it and keep it moving. That's it. You know, I'm in a really, I haven't even shared with you, you know, a bad investment right now. The market took a shift. And I'm terrified because I'm going to lose. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. Why did I do that? I wouldn't have done it if I didn't think it was going to work. You know, I just have to take the loss and on to the next one. But I can't sit and work, because I can get into a depression, and I can not want to keep going. I can not want to do it again. I just made them. It just happened.
Right. And I
we
think
learn,
that's the key.
You learn. You have to take the lessons.
to learn too.
Yeah. And I think that's the key of giving yourself grace. And like you said, to not talk over. I know our conversation can be over some people's head who are really stuck in something, but it's simply saying, right, like, what's the story, right? Write it down. Get a piece of paper and a pencil and find a private space and write the story down, and then look for, and then so I write the story. This happened to me. Da 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 da. Then write how it made you feel. It made me feel worthless, like a loser, like I'm never going to get this. It made me feel violated, whatever the words are. Write the words down. And then really tap into those words and highlight maybe 3 of the words that you say on a regular basis. I'm a loser. I'm stupid.
Measured against what, right? What's the comparison with?
Well, and then see how, and then think about other scenarios in your life that you attach to that story, to that word. What is your word? What is your go-to word? And what is the emotional home it takes you to? I feel guilty. I feel like I'm not enough. I feel empty. I'm alone. I'm not ever going to belong to anything. Where does it take you? And I think when you can become more aware of where your emotions take you, you'll find that there's a pattern with that. When you're up against something, you'll get back in your car and you'll drive to your emotional home called guilt or not being enough. And then think about, as you're taking that drive to your emotional home, what are the words and what's the language that you're telling yourself? And I think that's the first step, because when you hear it and you start to say it out loud, like we had Megan Buckley on the show and she was great. And she said they did a thing where they sat in front of somebody and they had to tell the other person the words they use against themselves, but as though they're saying it to them. So it would be like, let's say my words are, you know, you're ugly, you're not enough, you're stupid. So let's say I'm looking at beautiful Charlene here and I'm telling you that like I'm talking to you. It would be so hard for me to do that. I would literally like shrink, like I can't say that to her.
I don't know if I read something or if we were, I don't know who I was talking to, and I hope I'm not saying something, but the wife was bashing herself. I'm ugly, I'm whatever she was saying negative. And he said, I really don't like how you're talking to my wife, because I really love her. And it made her think like, but I know I got a little goosebump, but I was like, God, that is so powerful.
It is, yeah.
And also, I mean, a little tip for those that might be in that position now, find something that you know you're good at, even if it's just writing, drawing, singing, dancing, whatever that is, and do more of that. Just do more of whatever that is. And if you don't know what that is, there's something. You just may not be identifying it because you haven't really thought about that.
Even if you're not good, if you like singing
But you
karaoke,
enjoy
I
it,
can't
yeah.
sing for crap, but I'll get up there and sing and it just makes me smile. I can't dance, but I'll get up and dance.
Move your body. Yeah. Do something to
And
just
just look for it.
Yeah.
Right? Like with the person that talked to me, and I had a long conversation with her, and I said, well, do you believe that you're broken? Well, yes, I do. And I said, well, you can't make you a liar. I said, but would you want to believe that you were something else? Well, yeah, I would. Well, what would that be? Well, I want to be healed. Well, I said, well, just say you're healed. And then just start looking for stuff that looks healed to you. Like, you may not have your circle right now because you keep yourself in isolation and alone. You may not have a significant other that can make you feel some kind of way, but you don't need the resources on the outside necessarily. You just have to know that you are deserving of love, that healing is who you are. To be healed is really where you're at right now, because your brokenness is you living in the past. But if you've survived it, that shows that you're a resilient person and you're here today because you are healed.
You have breath, you have purpose.
And just
yes.
look for it.
And start the self-love process.
Yeah.
Because
like just
if nobody
Google,
else loves me.
Google healed.
Yeah.
Not I want to be, I'm broken, needing healing. Just look up the word. Find a video on healed. And just start somewhere so you can start to get the flavor of it inside your palate. You know, look at people who have resilient stories and look how they tell their story. Are their shoulders pulled back? Do they have a smile on their face? And when you're feeling your brokenness, tell your brokenness with a smile on your face and see how that shifts. Pull your shoulders back, lift up your face, and change your body language when you tell your broken story. I guarantee you, you will feel different telling that story because it won't, you have to be in it, even physiologically, in order for it to be real. And sometimes just shifting that, like, I'm sorry, rambling, but real quick, like I remember one time me and my mom got into it. And she was in this woe is me thing. And I was already going through my own personal things in my life. And she was just sitting on the couch. It was one spot on the couch that she loved to sit at and tell her sob story about woe is me. And my mom's had some crazy life stories, right? But I said, next time you tell that story, because I was in my feelings, you need to sit in another spot in the house and see if the story rings the same. Because I feel like that's your little feel sorry for me nook. Find a different place to sit and tell the story differently next time. Because I'm tired of hearing it. She was so mad. She's like, you self-righteous, this and that. And we get into it. And then we didn't talk for like a week or two, right? And I'm not recommending this, by the way. And she ends up calling me up and she's like, I'm so mad at you because after you left, I tried sitting on different spots of the couch.
Oh, God.
And I couldn't tell the story the same.
That's funny.
It didn't feel right. She's like, I think you're onto something.
It's that familiar.
Yeah. No,
Yes.
but we do that. Even our sad stories, even our brokenness, even the things that we tell, we literally have a habit in the way we tell it. No different than smoking a cigarette. You know, our habits are patternistic. And if we can start paying attention to the time of day, to the things that trigger, to the music we may listen to, you might have to literally change your playlist.
Talk to yourself. Ain't you tired of yourself yet? Like, I'm so
If your
tired of
playlist
myself.
is like, I remember that. Change the song. It's time to erase the playlist. You know, go on a treadmill and just walk and listen to different music.
It changes everything.
It does. It really does. Okay, so in conclusion, you were going to say something.
They do say when you're hurting to help others, and you know that helps you, whether it's you can or not. There's a change that happens inside of you because really, there's a selfishness to depression. You know, where we're in ourselves, but really, as you said, we live in a country, a lot of opportunities, we're free, etc. There's and I hate to say this, but it's relevant. There's worse than where you're at. And sometimes when we put ourselves in a place where we can be of service, even though we need it, it changes that energy inside of us. And it really helps us see things in a different way.
It's a hell of an antidote.
Absolutely.
It really is. When you're contributing and giving, it's quite the antidote. All right. So in conclusion of this, limiting beliefs, before we get into the conclusion, next week, I want to launch, though, I've been talking about getting to the women empowerment thing. I think that the Lipstick Ladies is where it all started. And I really would want us to, you know, really kick off this women empowerment thing. And not to take away from the men, because I think women to be empowered also mean that we're around a bunch of really amazing men. I mean, the reason why I'm in the studio is because of a great guy, right,
Yes,
Quan?
Great guy.
So anyway, so we'll get into that starting next week. We'll do a whole month, and I really want to get some really powerful women and men on the show. So in conclusion of limiting beliefs, what do you all want to say to the people out there that are listening that are really struggling with this?
Change your circle. Look within yourself. Find help, resources, church, prayer. I do a lot of self-talk. I'm Lorraine's always like, you need to sit on a couch. I'm like, girl, I sit on my own couch. No, but get whatever help you need, and just start digging into the things that give you a little fire. Even if it's a little fire, if it makes you a little excited, do research on it, see how you can do it, and change your path, trajectory.
There is no right way. There's just a way, whatever way you can take to lead to that next place, one step in front of the next movement. I really believe in moving your body to get that energy going, and really just whatever. It doesn't have to be religion, but faith. Just have somewhere you can go and disconnect those thoughts and really journal. Writing stuff down helps too. There's a ton of different tactics or things we could do, but really just finding something and just starting exactly where you're at, knowing that there's nobody else watching and it's your journey. Just decide.
I think another good exercise is like every day be intentional about being nice to somebody or doing something kind for somebody else. Even if it's buying a candy bar for a kid that likes a specific candy, just doing something for somebody else in that day and being really intentional about doing it every day.
Carpe diem, right? Seize the moment. There's always a moment when you're out that will just stumble across your way to do something kind.
Or even just give a compliment to somebody walking past.
Right.
Just something that's not selfish.
You know, I for me to conclude, I would say that, you know, believe something else for your life. Try it. Just try it. Just believe something better for your life. Believe that that is tangible, that it is real, and come into community with it. Find your tribe and find the people that will help to support what you now believe, and let yourself catch up to that belief. It's not going to happen overnight, and you're going to have setbacks, and you're going to have the limiting beliefs creep back in, and it's okay. But the more aware you are of it, you can let it go. You don't have to push it out, right? Your brain cannot subtract. It only does addition and multiplication. So whatever you try to say not to believe, it's going to multiply that belief anyway. So why not just try something different? And just believe it, because everybody really, truly is they're just deserving of a fulfilling life. I believe that for everybody.
Absolutely.
No matter what has happened to you.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Okay, so again, there's a reference page. We referenced it last week as well. TonyRobbins.com. There is a complete guide to limiting beliefs. Literally, you can go on there, and it literally walks you through how to discover what some of your limiting beliefs are, and some work, and it's totally free. There's no cost for it. I'm not plugging this. I don't get paid, but it is very, very good workbook. So if you are...
It's confidential, whatever they put in.
Right. It's just a workbook for you. So if you really want to tap into that, please go to that reference. And again, thank you guys so much for watching the show. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you want us to talk about. We love to hear from you all. And thank you for everybody that's been supporting the show for a year now. So thank you. And until next time, ciao.